Scale, exit, repeat. Welcome to the Complete Entrepreneur. Today we're talking about surviving entrepreneurial disappointment bounce back series. This is what we do here every Thursday at 5 o'clock Eastern with our host, Michael Gilmore. And we talk about the things that matter for you as an individual, what it is that you go through as an entrepreneur in your life to succeed. We're just going to give them to Phil and play just a minute of the. Us crazy, we knew because that's just what founders do. We are the change, the truth, the glue. We are entrepreneurs through and through. We don't just dream, we do. Be entrepreneurs. Michael, welcome to the show. I love that song. I
Oh,
love the
that's
words of
great.
that song. Don't you?
It's great to be here on the Complete Entrepreneur. It's a moment during the week that I really look forward to, Colin. Just as people come into the room, there's just so much that's happened this last week. And I know in my life, in my business, and everything like that. And I'm thinking about everyone here in the audience. Gee, there's obviously lots happening in their business as well. But this topic to it today, Colin, it's a great one. Surviving entrepreneurial disappointment, bounce back series. Yeah, and I think the surviving the entrepreneurial disappointment is a really interesting one because it's one thing that every entrepreneur will always experience, and that's disappointment. Would you agree, Colin?
It's standard, right? Disappointment is part of our code, our genetics, I think. I don't know. It's like we're gamblers, okay? So if you go into a casino and you bet at a blackjack table and you get a bad hand and you put up a lot of money, you do two splits or you do a couple double downs and you lose. Are you going to be disappointed? Yes, you're going to be
No, of
disappointed.
course.
That's the
Of course
reality.
you
And
would.
that's what we go through every day as an entrepreneur in our life. We experience these disappointments. And unfortunately, for some people, that disappointment, and I'm not an exception to this, I'm probably one of those people, it can actually really have a negative impact on us health wise and emotionally and family and relationships and all of the things that we have in our life. And it's been a I will say this is actually such a interesting topic that you came up with, Michael, because just yesterday I had a seven-figure deal, pretty large deal, fall apart.
So did
I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, how many times in my life am I going to go through this? It's a big piece of land. It was a land sale in Toronto area, and the market there is very weak. And we had a contract, and unfortunately, yesterday it fell apart. See, that's the thing about this show with Michael and I, and all those who come on stage, Jason and others who come up here and share their experiences and stories and talk about. We are not just authors and speakers. We live it day to day. We run an incubator here in
Yeah.
Fort Lauderdale. Michael operates obviously out of Australia. He runs a company day to day. We are living it. And you want
Yeah.
disappointment, Michael? It's been a rough week for me. I'll be honest.
Yeah. Look, it's I completely understand you with that. And one of the reasons why I came up with this topic is that I had a huge disappointment yesterday, which I'll share
I
shortly.
knew it. I knew
But
somehow it
for
was
those
related to you having a very bad situation.
I
I knew it was
think we both
there.
had a bad week. So
Yeah.
I think it's time to get out the bottle of wine there here, I think, Colin.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Look,
Moderation,
but
that's what we learned,
everything.
right? Moderation. You
Exactly.
can't let it get out of control.
Yeah, exactly. But the other thing is this is that if you're in the audience right now, this is the complete entrepreneur where we begin to look at not just what does it mean to be an entrepreneur, but what does it mean to lead the life of an entrepreneur? There will be these emotional issues you've got to deal with, and how do you deal with them? And sharing that. If you're in the audience, you say, "Look, I'm going through something right now. It's a huge disappointment. I just need to unload. I need to share what's going on, or I had this experience in the past, or something like that, or whatever it is, put your hand up. We'd love to have you up on stage and this, and as it, have you a part of this. If you're listening to this on podcast, then come into Clubhouse and come and join us live as well. But if you're listening to the comp in podcast, it's great to have you there as well. In the meantime, so my story. So My wife and I, we've always wanted a house on the beach, and we finally found the house and down in Melbourne, Australia here, and we put a we went through lots of different hoops and everything like that. We had to go through to purchase the property. So we put an offer in with the agent and it was accepted. And with fantastic, we're like really excited and everything. This is yesterday, literally yesterday. And they said, all you got to do is just put the formal, like the verbal offer is all accepted, it's all good, and the vendor is happy to go ahead. And this is a seven-figure deal, so it's a fair bit. Yeah, and so we put the formal written offer in, and everything was all green lights until it wasn't. When someone else came in at the very last minute and basically put a ridiculous offer in, an insane offer in, and it was obviously accepted by the vendor. So it was a bit of a roller
Yeah,
coaster
Michael,
ride. We
I
thought we
just need to break it to you. That was me. No, I'm teasing, obviously.
That's okay. Last case, I'll stay in the spare room.
Yeah, you
But
told me
yeah,
about this house, and then I was like, "This I gotta get
yeah,
this house now." No, I
yeah. I'm
yeah, yeah,
thinking we'll have
so
you
I
down.
understand. So you had this
Yeah,
deal.
you
It
had
was
a
a
deal.
dream, and it's very emotional now too, right? It's a very emotional
Yeah, yeah,
decision, and now
yeah,
you've lost it.
yeah. So it was interesting to go on the roller coaster because particularly when you're told it's been accepted. And then at literally the last minute, it was, and of course the agent comes back and says, "Okay, you're going to increase your offer and everything like that." And my wife and I would look at each other and said, "That's a stupid number that the other people have put in. No, we're not going to." And so all power to the vendor and all that sort of stuff. Brought up an interesting thing just in this area.
But your heart must have felt. I mean, this when you
Oh,
get that moment in business or a startup,
oh,
and
yeah.
you think you got the deal, and then you lost the deal, or you think you got the sale
Oh,
of the
it's
company and they
it's
pull out. Like yesterday with my sale of one of my land properties, it collapsed, and it was a big, okay, it's a farmland that was bought by my grandfather in 1940, and it's in the city of around the city of Toronto, and my entire family owns it. I own half of it, and they own the rest because I bought out other owners on the farmland. I consolidated the owners, and my mother's been farming it. She's 85 years old now, and she says I'm pretty much done. I don't want it anymore. And it's zoned industrial and residential. And we had a deal. They were going to build industrial condos on the property. And just yesterday, they said, we can't do it. And just your heart drops. It's like you got a deal and your heart, it really, it was like a punch in the stomach. I'd rather take a punch in the stomach than lose the deal. And I know you would as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting roller coaster. And to give you an idea, this is the culmination of a 7-year journey for us. That we'd always wanted to move down the beach the last 7 years and everything like that. And to lose it at that point, and sure, it wasn't directly related to the business side, but it was the vision which I've taken the whole way along through my business was okay, we want to go and build do this. And to get to that point and suddenly have this disappointment, it was look, an entrepreneur's journey is up and down in their life. And your personal side of your life is directly linked to your business side. And as much as you like to say, that's business as a personal, I'm sorry, they're linked. Yeah, that's just the way, that's just the job you signed up for. And that's the profession you're in. It's called entrepreneurship. And they're very much linked. So I go from that incredible disappointment, and my wife is pretty upset about it all. And she said, "How can someone say yes, but then say no?" Which is an interesting conversation in itself. And so then I get to my desk this morning, and I think, okay, it's another day. And my chief revenue officer says, "I got something to talk to you about." And I said, "Yeah, okay." I'm thinking, all right, what's gone wrong now? I sometimes think the role of an entrepreneur is the chief problem solver. He said, he goes, "We got a problem, major client." I said, "Okay, here we go." He goes, "They're unbelievably overjoyed with what we're doing, and they just love all the numbers coming through, and they're skyrocketing." So he was teasing me. I'm thinking I wasn't in the mood to be teased, but anyway. And you go through this like devastation the day before to elation the next day, and this major client is suddenly skyrocketing and moving more and more stuff across to us and wanting to do more and more business.
It's quite a swing,
And
isn't it?
then, yeah, it's a huge
Yeah,
swing.
you're
And
you're really
literally
like you're on the
before,
floor and then you're like dancing and on top of life.
yeah,
It's like
and
bipolar. It's like you're a little bit you have a
oh,
bipolar
very much
lifestyle.
so.
I don't think that's
Literally
a thing.
before that conversation, I was in another meeting earlier this morning with a $4 billion company that wants to go ahead and basically do massive amounts of business with us. And I'm thinking, maybe I should have put more a better offer on that person. No,
And here's the thing, Michael, I think we're sounding a little bit pathetic up here because
I'm,
these are first world problems. And the average
yeah,
person out there, they're fighting for day to day, they're bill to bill.
mm,
And sometimes it's just that one sale, that even $100 sale they lose, or sometimes
yeah,
it's the hurricane that hits and wipes them out, wipes out their store. There's so many
yeah,
situations where disappointment come from launching a business. And I think probably one of the biggest ones is you have an idea, you think it's great, you launch it, and it just doesn't work. And
yeah,
that's just not just financial. That's also you feel like, oh, my reputation was affected. I embarrassed myself. I did all this and all these other things that happened with the startup.
yeah.
I think that
Like,
what
can
you've
I, can
got
I,
and
can I
I got
just,
is a little bit different, but we experience the same things. We experience the same emotions, and that's what this show's about. We're trying to talk about those emotions, right? So if you're on in the
yeah,
audience, you want to come on stage, we'd love to hear from you.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think one of the things is that when I reflect disappointment, say that we experienced yesterday, my wife and I, and it is definitely an emotional journey. The whole day was very emotional, as just like working out what's the price we're going to offer and yada yada and all that sort of stuff. And you find out it's been accepted, then the last minute, no, it hasn't been, and they've gone with someone else. And you think, what happened? Did they say yes or not? Yeah, and it's really there was one thing I would say to entrepreneurs: allow yourself to be emotional. Give yourself permission at times to go and just
Can you
yell at the
really do that
sky.
though? Because
Yeah, you
and
can.
how do you do
You
that? How do you
can.
do that carefully? Let me ask you a question because you got a team of people underneath you and you look like you're falling apart, they're going to fall apart.
Yeah. So allow yourself to be emotional, but do it in a wise way. In other words, you don't go along and yell at your team. You go privately. You just say, "I'm just going to duck out for a drive." You go to a park somewhere and you just scream at the sky.
But I'm
Or a
guilty
few
of
times,
this. I'm guilty of getting a disappointment like I did yesterday. And today I came to work and the lady I was working with, she runs paw.com and she says, I was really worried about you today because I thought you'd be very miserable. And I was like, you can have an effect on your people when disappointment comes,
very
on my
much so.
spouse, on your kids, whatever. And how do you handle that? Like, how do you ice insulate them from the kind of pain that comes along with the day-to-day running a startup?
I think for me, Colin, I think that's a really great question, by the way. Is number one is don't take your pain out on people. Don't take it out on people. And just because you're feeling hurt, it doesn't give you the luxury and permission to go along and yell at others. And someone who does that needs to go along and check their attitude at the door. Like seriously, because like I've had when I look at my journey over the last couple of years in particular, I've had people say, "Why don't you go along and get angry at that person because they haven't done blah blah blah?" And I said, my response would be, "Why would I get angry at the person that's going to be instrumental in solving the problem?" Yeah, and that's a challenge because emotionally, I just want to go along and rip them a new one, to be quite blunt with you, and just go along and eviscerate them, turn their insides into their outsides, and all that sort of stuff. That's what I want to do, but you don't. And the reason why is because you're the leader and you're the entrepreneur and you've chosen to do that. So, what do you do with all the emotional angst yourself? Do you bottle up inside? If you do that, you're going to kill yourself. You don't bottle up inside. For me, I go away somewhere, just myself, privately, and either yell at the sky or I just sit down and I just look at the world around me. And the
But is that,
next thing I
you're
do,
I know what you're doing. You're
yeah.
internalizing it and you're not sharing it, but is that
No, I'm
dangerous?
not internalizing it. I'm actually not internalizing it, because if you internalize it, it's going to kill you. It really is. If you just
No, but
bring
is it dangerous
everything,
to have it alone, like, to just yell in the sky? Don't you like, I think that
it is
it is
dangerous.
dangerous what you're
So,
saying, because when you have a crisis or a disappointment and you share that with somebody in a safe environment or a group of
mhm.
people,
Notice what you
that
said
can
just then.
help you get through the problems.
Notice what you said just then. It's really critical. When you have someone you can share with, that's the critical thing. Don't just share with anybody, share with somebody. In other words, have that mentor, have that group of people or that person that you can openly share and get rid of that angst inside. The angst is going to kill you. It really is. That pressure, that tension, that disappointment, the aggravation, the frustration, that will kill you as an entrepreneur. You need to have someone. And I know there's been times, Colin, we've shared with each other different things along our journey and everything like that, where it's just a relief to share it, because you cannot share a whole lot of things with your team. There's some things you can share, there's a lot of things you can share, but you cannot share everything. You will destroy your team if you do. So you have to have someone you can share with. And there's a lot of things I share with my wife that I don't share everything with my wife. I don't treat her as, okay, this is the garbage dump I can just go along and just vomit onto it on a regular basis, because it'll destroy my relationship with my wife. I'm not going to do that. I will share some things, and I also don't look to her to solve my problems. The person you're sharing with is not there to solve your problems. They're there to listen. That's the really important thing to realize. Also, if you're sharing with somebody, don't look at them to solve your problems. 99% of the time, the entrepreneur has to solve their own problems. But what they can do is have someone to share with that allows them to get clarity to their thinking of how to solve it, and get rid of the emotions and everything out of that in that process. And you begin to get very clear of how you should approach, say, that lost partner, or making sure you don't lose the next client and that sort of thing like that, and different approaches to things and get clarity to it. But you have to deal with the emotions though. Like, we're not AIs. As much as the AI world would say it's just going to go along mimic us, I hope it doesn't. But we have this thing called emotions, and you've got to deal with them, and they're very powerful. They allow us to inspire others. They allow us to inspire ourselves. They also can allow us to destroy ourselves. So you've got to learn how to deal with the whole emotions of the disappointment, of the highs and lows. I look at my chief revenue officer as a classic example. And we have this little saying between us, which is, we go, no, 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 you got the Batman song, the old Batman song, which is like the dynamic duo have struck and we got another client on board, and he gets very excited. And I see him go through this emotional roller coaster. And one of my roles for him is to bring a sense of stability along that journey, because he thinks he's got the client. He's so excited and all that sort of stuff. And he does the Batman song. And then it takes 6 months to a year to finally get the client on board, or they just lose interest, or whatever the reason why is. And you watch him go through the disappointment and the exhilaration and so forth, these cycles. As an entrepreneur, as you were saying, Colin, you can't just go ahead and dump on your team at all. The entrepreneur needs to provide leadership and stability for your team, which are also going through their own cycles of disappointment and their own cycles of elation and things like that. And so you bring the stability in. But who does it for us? See somebody, not anybody, and formalize that relationship. Say, hey, you're a person I can really share with. Don't have them as a part of the business either, because let me tell you, it's going to be really hard for you if you do that. Like one of my closest friends I've known since grade 4, he works for me, but there's a whole lot of stuff I would not share with him. And the reason why I wouldn't share it with him, because I value the friendship as well. And yeah, so I have someone outside the business. And it's a great emotional journey. Yeah. And that's, uh, in fact, my wife Rosalind and I were talking this morning over breakfast, and she goes, you know what? A lot of people like the merry-go-round. I like the roller coaster. In other words, there will be highs and lows. And you just deal with them and you just move on and realize you're on a roller coaster. And that's called the life of an entrepreneur. Yeah, and yeah, it's exhilarating, Colin. Yeah, it's exhilarating. It's with the highs and lows. But I'd love to hear from Jason. Jason, what's your thoughts on this topic? It's an interesting topic, I think.
Yes, and it's critical. I think it's one of the most and more important ones that you all could cover. As an entrepreneurship, I don't know if you've seen Michael, but the most important quote I could give, and it's mine, is that sharing with somebody that doesn't, like a non entrepreneur, especially an entrepreneur that has failed and continued or recovered or something, because there are some people that just, I don't really believe in luck, but in that term, they did their first business and they haven't failed yet. I wouldn't say that though that person would be fitting into category. But when you share with somebody, you have to share with somebody that understands it's a roller coaster and that it's very hard and has failed and continued or started again. So they understand, because it's like sharing, if you share with somebody that doesn't have the right mindset and entrepreneurship experience to know, they'll almost certain, they'll almost, they're very likely to just tell you to give up because that's what they would do, that's what they did even before they started. Okay, so the thing is, they'll look at you like you're an alien for not wanting to give up or wanting to ever try it again. And it's the tantamount to sharing with somebody that doesn't speak English and expecting them to understand, and then even worse, expecting them to give good advice. Okay, like you wouldn't expect that if somebody only speaks Japanese. You wouldn't expect to tell them your challenge in English and expect them to both understand and give you good advice. Okay. And I learned this the hard way because I expected my mother to understand. My mother doesn't have any experience in ventures or starting a business. So her only advice is always to give up. So the thing is, if it just is a foreign concept to her, why would I even do that? And even it was funny because even my uncle, I went to a different country and I was trying to understand. I went to Antigua and I was surprised that my uncle, because my uncle was my dad's older brother and my dad had passed away. So he's my closest uncle. I had known him for years. And you know what he said to me? And I was surprised because he actually had a mechanic shop, but it's a little bit more conventional having a mechanic shop. But I was surprised because he does run his own business and he was retired then and just doing a little bit of work. But he said, "You came to Antigua without a job?" I'm the president. Okay, people that don't have entrepreneurship experience think being the president is not a job. I was like, how did these other
Yeah.
jobs come from? Where did they come from? If being president is not a job, you understand what I'm saying? This is
No,
Jason. I'm done
absolutely,
speaking.
Jason. I think the interesting thing is I can really relate to what you're saying because my mother, until she suffers a lot from dementia right now, but my mother would literally say to me, "So when are you planning on getting a job?" And I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. She said, "When are you planning on getting a job?" And I go, "Yeah, Mum, I actually work and I work really hard every single day. Yeah, but when are you going to get a job?" And then I realized, yeah, she actually just has no idea of what it means to be an entrepreneur. Yeah, and you love them for it, but ultimately, it's that's why I keep on saying when you're experiencing disappointment, because it is pretty rough to handle. When you're experiencing disappointment, see somebody, not anybody. And I know, Colin, you've been a strong proponent of EO, haven't you? I'll be able to share in those sort of circumstances where you're talking to other entrepreneurs where they can actually understand the roller coaster.
Yeah, I think that you know when it when it comes to give me a second here. Hold on. When it comes to starting a business, when it comes to building a company, when it comes to scaling a company, it takes a village to raise a startup. And you need people around you. And I belong to an organization called EO, and for almost 30 years, every month we would meet with a group of individuals and we would share each other's personal, family, business issues in that meeting. And it made all the difference. It makes all the difference because we're in a safe environment. We're in an environment where we can share with others what our challenges are and what our opportunities are. And these individuals get to know your business intimately. And that organization is called EO. They have an accelerator program. There's also other ways as well. You can get into local incubator. I know Alan Levan Center has had some free programs in the past. That's in the South Florida market. Most of the major metropolitan areas have free incubator programs or accelerate programs. You also have SCORE. SCORE is put on by the SBA, and this is US, Michael, but put on by the SBA, and they have over 10,000 volunteers. And they actually have a statistic that if you get a SCORE mentor, that you can increase your chances of success by 3 times. I thought that was actually pretty impressive. And even Startup Club, going to Startup Club, sign up to the email list, but also join us on stage and talk to us about your business. Talk to us about your challenges. Come on to the Complete Entrepreneur. Come on to the Friday show at 2 o'clock, which is the Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat Serial Entrepreneur Secrets Revealed, same name as the book that I published. But the key here is you're not alone, that you have people around you who want to help you. The only question is that you have to ask. The only question is that you have to want to receive help. And too many times I've bumped into entrepreneurs, Michael, who do not want to help. They think they know
Yeah.
everything. They know everything, and they ain't going to listen to
Right.
anyone. And you know
I
what?
look,
I can't
Colin,
tell you how many times I've seen those entrepreneurs self destruct.
yeah.
You could look at them
I
from 5 years, they have this little bit of success. They get very arrogant. They think they know what they're doing. And then 5 years later, nothing.
Yeah, Colin, completely agree with you on that. I've seen it over and over again myself, where when those entrepreneurs that believe number one, they have to have all the answers. Number two, they believe their own rhetoric, and it leaves them very exposed. And you look at the very successful entrepreneurs, and by the way, including the Elon Musks of the world and that sort of stuff, and they actually really listen to other people, believe it or not. They really do. They may challenge other people, but they really listen. I know myself, and I'm not putting this term in Australia tickets on myself, pumping myself up to look good or anything. But when it comes to different discussions, even with team members, I will argue a position. And when I'm convinced that the particular team member has really thought through the issues and really nailed all the issues down, I'll just say to them, "You're right, I'm wrong." And I think that one of the fastest ways you can avoid disappointment is being prepared that you're wrong. At times, you're just wrong. And then just move on and realize that your team there is, they'll support you through those times of disappointment. You don't unload on the team or anything like that, but they will support you through those times. Be an amazing support, in fact, because they're not stupid, right? They'll see you go through the emotions, but they'll respect you ever the more if you become emotionally intelligent and you don't just start yelling at people for the sake of it. And when you admit you're wrong, let me tell you, only a strong person can do that. And particularly when your team sees you going through an emotional roller coaster and they know you're going through it, but you're still emotionally intelligent enough to admit that sometimes you're wrong. And all those entrepreneurs that think that they're right, and as you said, Colin, they're very arrogant, and they get this arrogant chip on their shoulder. Yeah, it's only a matter of time before they fail. It really is, and they'll fail catastrophically. It won't just be a moment of disappointment; it'll be a moment of reckoning, which is very different. Yeah, so there's disappointment and feeling like you're being punched in the guts. And it's one thing when it's external to your organization. It's another thing when it's a team member. Colin, how do you deal with, and then I'll come down to Joe, how do you deal when a team member really disappoints you? What's some of the approaches you deal with that when you just get so disappointed with them that with them as individuals? Do you just go and fire them? What do you do?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of that one through. I haven't, obviously, if team members disappoint, the first thing you want to do is the reason why they're a team member is because you believed in them. So then
Yeah,
you want to help them out. So that would be my first instinct would be to help them out and try to, but if we kept going down the path where it didn't work out, then it's necessary to do them a favor and fire them. And
yes.
why do I express it like that? I express it like that because you can be nice and keep someone in the wrong job and hold them back. But if you know the person's not performing in that position and you fire the person and then they recognize that's just not the type of work I want to do, and then it nudges them to the right direction into the work they want to do, then all of a sudden you've helped them out by moving them along. So I don't look at it if they disappoint, if someone's really talented in their party and I, like I look at it a little differently. I look at it if they made an effort, be proactive. Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey. If they are number one, be proactive and they go out and they do something and they fail at it, and I'm disappointed about the results, I'm not worried about that. What I'm worried about is people not going out and not failing. That's what I worry about, the slow killers, the political animals that exist within our organizations. They're the ones that I'm most paranoid of. So, yeah, if someone disappoints me and they're really good at what they do, I'm happy that they went out there and tried. I'm happy they went out
Yeah,
there and went for gold. I'm happy that when they went out there, but what I'm not happy is when someone just coasts.
yeah. Look, Colin, I'd agree with you on that. And I think there's two things I'd separate into. One is someone who really tries their best and fails. Then I regard it as it is my job to go and pick them up, put my arm around them, and say, "Come on, let's have another go. Yeah, let's do this together." Yeah. And then there's the other one, which is someone who's just done really bad work, slipshod sort of work, and slapdash. And I'll relate to a related story that happened to me where I had a developer who was about to go on a couple of weeks vacation, and this just happened very recently. And he went away, and I had to look at some of his code and that sort of stuff as we were sorting out some things for clients. So I had to dig into it, and I saw the code, and it was horrendous. It was really bad,
You didn't tell them about
and
Claude Code?
it's interesting. I'll come to that in a second. It was really bad code. I then went along, and so he got back yesterday. And within 30 minutes of him arriving back, I was on a call with him, and I said, "What the heck is this? This is really bad code." And he actually said, "Yeah, I just grabbed it from like ChatGPT, this code, and slapped it in there." I said, "I don't care where you got it from. You're paid to do a job as a developer. And if you're going to do this, then you need to review the code before you go along and release it into production." And I said, "This is just not good enough." I think one of the challenges is there's been disappointment because someone has tried and failed, and then there's just disappointment because that is just slipshod work, really bad work. With which case, the job of the entrepreneur is to raise the standard. That's the standard. And I said to him, I'm really disappointed in you. This is just not good enough. And this is the reason why. And I had a bit of a longer discussion with him. And by the end of the day, he said he's now fixed all these things and all that sort of stuff. And he apologized profusely. And I said, that's okay to apologize. And I'm happy you did that. But make sure it never happens again. You know the standards we have. And it just so happens that this CEO happens to have been coding since he was 11 years old. So don't try to run something past me. And yeah, so there's times I'm disappointed in someone because I'm disappointed because that person wasn't able to achieve something they really went for. With which case, like I said, I put my arm around them. But then there's times I'm disappointed because someone's just decided to do substandard work. With which case, I say this is not good enough. And I handle the different issues very differently. And I never handle them in a public scenario unless the issue was public. I always handle it one on one. And by handling it one on one allows them to also save face and everything like that. But if something is done publicly, I'll deal with it publicly. If it's done privately, if I can possibly deal with it privately, I always deal with it privately. But so I'm disappointed in both situations, but I react very differently to those circumstances, Colin. But I want to come down to Joe here. But just before, Joe, you're listening to The Complete Entrepreneur, where we're beginning to unpack this really interesting topic, which is surviving entrepreneurial disappointment. And we're about to hear from Joe here. So, Joe, we'd love to get your thoughts on this topic.
You got me with the word bounce up there for the title. Having that resonance, having that repetition. And one of my other favorite sayings I heard this week was to go continuously chew on some glass.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it
Look,
gets down to that living process. Is you're just not done with it yet. It's not always going to be done. And you know what? If you keep doing it, I'm going to keep going and chopping down a tree, okay? I'm going to keep going and chopping down the next tree, okay? Now I go chop down the next tree. You know what? One of these times I better stop and I better sharpen my axe.
yeah. Yeah, that's a Stephen Covey thing, which is the story of the guy. He's wandering through a forest. He sees the other guy trying to saw a log. And he's saying, You're not getting anywhere through that log." And the other guy goes, "But I seem to be making such great progress." Yeah, lots of effort, no results. No, I agree with that, Joe. Yeah, so is it a matter of just sharpening the axe, Joe, though, or the saw? Do as entrepreneurs, is how you handle, say, disappointment. And I loved your say, by the way, just chewing on glass, because yeah, sometimes as an entrepreneur it feels like that. You're literally chewing on glass. Yeah. But how do you handle that, Joe, in your own journey?
I like to reflect on some of the people that I work with, their accounts, and what are their shadow statements that they have from cultural statements. Nobody ever got fired for buying our product, but it was so pricey, kind of things. Or we find the errors that the manufacturer didn't know about because
Yeah.
we tested it to failure, kind of thing. There's, it's a living process. So as long as you take it as, I've seen one too many fires in industries. So it's, you want to get out of the urgent things and work on important things and stop the urgency because responding in urgency just isn't pleasant.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good point, is that if you're constantly looking at your industry and what it's doing and things like that, you'll walk around the place terrified for a start, because oh my gosh, this competitor's coming. Oh, this is we're doomed. And you'll be constantly disappointed. So what you're saying is just work on the constant improvement yourself. Is that one of the solutions you found for disappointment?
Absolutely. And then if you got stuck, you keep stuck, keep feeling like a little insane that you're doing the same thing and not getting the right results. And then at some point, I find the entrepreneurs have a bit of faith that they're going to make something happen that doesn't yet exist, that they're going to push through. The innovators are, hey, why don't we do it this way? Wouldn't that be nice? Hello, everybody. Come and do it the easy way. Wouldn't this be nice if we innovated on that? So it's a mix. You just got
Yeah,
to keep feeling inspired that you want to go and make something better.
yeah, that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's like there'll be disappointments along the way, but it's just that constant improvement, that constant innovation, that being creative, and ultimately, a lot of the joy comes from not just your P&L as an entrepreneur; it comes from just the creation.
You're too busy
It,
being asked to quote your customers to go and create the things that they need in order to
it
even manage half the P&L, all right? That's the problem, right? I
Uh,
hope.
yeah, yeah. I'm too busy seeing customers to actually deliver the work.
I'm not only seeing the customers, but the work that they give you, you're too busy giving them all the answers that they need to bother
Yeah.
about the P&L because you're like, oh, I'm serving the customer first. Oh yeah, I need to get back to the P&L, but serving the customer is the priority.
So how much of it is disappointment is of our own making? We give it a classic example. I'll come back from a conference
Mm.
and I'll look at all the different opportunities, say from a conference, all the meetings I've had and everything, and you'll think, oh my gosh, like there's so many opportunities here. And I've seen some entrepreneurs, what they do is they try to do them all. And all they do is just get disappointed the whole time because they can never execute on everything. So it's of their own making, their disappointment. And maybe it's better just to focus on the 1 to 2 best opportunities and focus on them and deliver them to the end result. Do you find in your experience, Joe, even in your own businesses and things like that, that we sometimes as entrepreneurs set ourselves up for disappointment?
The thing you're most disappointed with is that which deviates from your expectations. So it depends. Did you set the expectation that you weren't going to follow through? Then I guess you weren't so hurt by that. But if you set the expectation that you were going to get this done and dream big and it was going to happen and then you didn't, then yeah, I guess that's deviating from your expectations.
But doesn't every entrepreneur want to be a millionaire, make $1 million?
That's the funny part of entrepreneurs having faith in things that sometimes just aren't true.
Yes.
Some delusion we're talking about here? Is there you're saying talk about entrepreneurial delusion?
Yeah, a little entrepreneurial delusion is healthy. You know,
And you know what's
placebo is good. If that placebo is going to help you do this thing, if you need to put a little ritual behind the placebo, guess what? Placebos help, like statistically, more than it should.
I think the other thing that entrepreneurs suffer from, the biggest disappointment I think they face, particularly in the tech world anyway, is when they're told something will take 3 months and they don't realize it'll actually take 6 months.
the disease of
And
optimism.
the disease of optimism is creates disappointment. And it's tough.
15 years ago on your show, and I said we'll get 5 million domains in 5 years, and we got 1 million domains in 5 years.
Yeah.
And then we got all these people came out and complained, and I wrote an article, and I wrote it was simply the disease of optimism. Entrepreneurs have the disease
Yeah,
of optimism.
I agree.
Yeah, yeah.
I
If I may,
completely agree
that
with that.
put in the chat that I'm an ex Microsoft Bill Gates quote. I've seen this happen over and over again. Even this last year, I did it. That most of us overestimate what we could do in 1 year and underestimate what we could do in 10 years.
Yes.
I've been guided by that because I do a 10-year challenge since 2010. In that 1 year, for instance, at first, when I was doing these Toronto Poet shows, I decided to go big into the theater from like we were doing these little shows in upstairs of a restaurant on Yonge Street, right? So I said, I need to go big to my old school. And I started booking the theater, doing these big shows in the theater. And it was funny because I said, okay, my dream for the decade was get a show on TV. And then I wrote that down January 1st, 2010. And then our fourth show was our April show, our Asian Summit. And the performer that I got for it, she had a connection at the local multicultural station in Toronto, and they came and filmed it for free. Okay, so on this Asian show, because I said you're doing an Asian summit, and they filmed it for free. So I said in 4 months, my dream for the decade came true. So I said, oh, I dreamt too small. So then I said, hey, let's travel around the world. I had no funding, no money, no partners, and I said I thought we could do it that year. Of course, we could not. So I had to sell my house, start over. But all of these years later, I was able to renovate my next house, sell it for $1 million, and retire in Antigua. But it took 12 whole years from that time when I set the vision. And I heard this James Cameron said this too about Avatar. He had the idea for Avatar, I don't know, like a couple decades before he actually did it. So I think that if you realize the timing could be off by a huge factor, not just two times, sometimes more. When I was working for the software company, we were like, when I started there in 2016, I saw an announcement that their next version was supposed to come out 3 months before I started. And I said, what is this? Why is this still on the YouTube channel? They said, oh, we forgot to delete it. We're behind. It turned out we ended up being like something like 2 years behind on the release. The co-founder had to leave. It was terrible. So and we lost the pilot customer. We built it around. They canceled, and it was just like a disaster. We had to revert back to the last version because there were so many bugs in it. So you have to really understand that your timing could be way off, and not be perturbed that you want to jump off a cliff if your timing is way off, because it's very hard to correctly predict timing. You could really know what you want to do. You have to be really flexible with the time projections, because you could be very far off when you're chasing numbers.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that. Like I look at when I took over the company back at the beginning of January 2024 from my business partner, I bought him out. And I said to myself, okay, this year we're going to redevelop our platform and we're going to move our clients onto the new platform and all that sort of stuff. Rather than taking 12 months, it took me 20 months. Yeah, entrepreneurs, and I'm technical, so entrepreneurs grossly underestimate how long things will take, and they'll get disappointed in that process. But I think one of the other gifts that an entrepreneur has is is you just sit down and just say, okay, this is my reality. I'm disappointed. Push on through and begin just like working the problem. And that's my approach, I think. In many respects, my approach to solving disappointment. Yeah, I might go to the park and sit down or down the beach and just stare at the water for a while. And I give myself permission to be upset for a time. And then I go back and I say, okay, time to work on the problem. And you just work away at it. And yeah, so if you've missed a deadline or you've missed has occurred negatively, I give myself that permission to be upset for a time. But then I say, okay, you've had enough wallowing around in your own self pity. Now work the problem. You're an entrepreneur, for goodness sakes. Get on with it. That's your job. In fact, I said to my team one stage in a meeting, I said, I just want to let you know I've resigned as the CEO of the company. And there was a gasp. I said, but it's okay. I've applied for another job. It's been accepted. It's called Chief Problem Solver. And that's what I do. I just solve problems. I was obviously being facetious about all that, but as entrepreneurs, we will constantly hit disappointment. It's our job to solve the problems, to remove the blockages. And sometimes it's inspiring others, sometimes it's working alongside others, sometimes it's solo. And you get through the emotion of the ups and downs and you push through to the other side. So, Colin, what do you think about that? How do you handle the ups and downs?
Okay, and I was going to come back a little bit though to this optimism, like this disease of optimism, because
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I experience it all the time, and this disappointment that. So I have a friend who just she spent 3 years building a home. Won't mention names,
Yeah.
and I was she put up a lot of money, and she made 75,000 in profit at the end, or maybe 100,000, and she was very disappointed in the outcome. And I'm thinking the market has been pretty flat here in Fort Lauderdale, has not been a great market. And quite frankly, she still made money, but her expectations of success were that it would come out much better. our expectations of success as entrepreneurs are that it will come out much better. And sometimes we might sell a company for $1 million or 5 million or 10 million, and we're like, ugh, but I really wanted to get 20 million, or I really wanted to get whatever it is. And it's those expectations. So I went through this myself personally. You know me, I always throw myself under the bus here, and I always share the stories. Probably I'm a little too liberal at this. I'm just in the process of selling an asset right now. And it was a business that we had run here in Fort Lauderdale. And it hasn't closed yet and it's not gone hard yet, but the price is about 600,000 below market based on the value. It's a real estate business. So we generally have a pretty good sense of value. And the fact is, though, I only paid, let's say, I think it was 1.5 altogether, and it's selling for 2.55. So I made it, so I should be celebrating. And here I am depressed and disappointed that the deal came in at that lower level. So, optimism that is within all of us that we don't check. And sometimes you just gotta, yeah, maybe you are disappointed that it didn't go as you planned. Okay. It's a base hit. Get over it. It's a double. Life goes on. It's a home run. Great. But this was not a home run. This was not a grand slam. You got to just accept that, accept it. And that's it. So I don't know. There's this optimistic, there's this belief that we're going to do something, we're going to work hard, we'll achieve. And maybe we get paid a lot less because the interest rates were higher, the economy was bad, the market's soft, whatever it is. But that's okay. If we still walk away making a buck, that's not too bad. Do it, move on to the next play, and try to make a buck on the next play. And maybe that's maybe that's the end of the story. So this the swings up and down, Michael. I got a hot tub. I got a bottle of wine. I'm going into it in the next 10 minutes. So I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, look, I think it's great to hear that from you, Colin. That story is the disappointment caused by optimism, and that when we actually achieve a goal and we think, oh, gee, I wanted to be bigger, just be grateful. And the other thing I found, I'm going to finish on this. It's been a great topic today, by the way, is that look around you and be grateful for the things and the people in particular that are around you. Yeah, really be grateful for them. And when you begin to develop an attitude of gratitude, then you'll discover the disappointments begin to fade because there's some great people that are around you and are supporting you in the way they best know how to support you, whether it's members of your team or your family or friends or whoever it is. They actually deep down inside want you to succeed. So don't become your own worst nightmare by being disappointed because you haven't hit a home run every time you stepped up to the plate. Because the reality is, no one hits a home run every time they step up to the plate. Anyway, you've been listening to The Complete Entrepreneur, and it's been great having Joe and Jason up here and sharing their experiences. If you're listening on podcast or if you're in the audience right here on the Clubhouse, make sure you go to startup.club and you sign up for the newsletter. The newsletter is phenomenal. It's once a month, so you're not going to be spammed or anything like that. Once a month newsletter. Go to startup.club and go in the newsletter. It's packed full of fantastic material for
Oh, it's going to
entrepreneurs.
be a doozy. It comes out tomorrow at noon.
Oh,
And
does
it's
it?
going to be a
Oh,
doozy. This one, like everyone's like a master class.
yeah.
So this one is all about AI masterclass, and you're gonna love it. And we really go all out. We do summarize a lot of the articles that come out on Startup Club. And by the way, every article now gets front page of Google. And we did a article on the top streaming shows, got the top number one spot in Google. We're about to come out with another article that I posted on LinkedIn. Over 50 people responded. We have the founder of Reebok, the founder of 1-800 Got Junk, the founder of Art of Shaving, Jeffrey Moore, who wrote Inside the Tornado. We have Michael Gilmore, who gave his movie advice. So it's what movies entrepreneurs should watch to inspire them and to learn
Yeah.
from them. Look, this is a community. We're a startup club. We love having you on stage and we love having you in the audience. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
And tomorrow, 2 o'clock Eastern, we are talking about the roller coaster. Michelle Van Tilburg, our host there, She's going to get into a lot more of the roller coaster. But tomorrow, the newsletter comes in at noon. It is going to be phenomenal. You're going to love it.
Yeah, it'll be great. And make sure you go to Amazon.com and buy Colin's book. It's an awesome book. So if you're listening to podcasts or in the audience here, go to Amazon.com and it Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat. It's won 39 awards. It's one of the most awarded entrepreneur book ever. And it is packed full of great stuff. It's think of it as the cheapest course you've ever been on. So I'm going to push your book for you, Colin,
I
and
actually read it
make
as
sure you
well,
go get
Michael.
it.
So I read it as well, and I've read over 100 books on entrepreneurship, and I actually even put it recommended on my website because yeah, it was very thorough. And it wasn't because he was Canadian, okay? I wouldn't say anything. I was quiet before I had read it, so it's not because he's Canadian. It's actually really thorough. It's good.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. So I hope each one of you have a wonderful time in your businesses this week and look forward to seeing you on the Complete Entrepreneur next week at 5 o'clock Eastern time. See you there. God bless.